that you people wouldn't believe. Entire armies fighting the gods off the shoulder of a human empire. I watch races vanish into the dark near the Chaos Gates. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die for Nagash.
In other words, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fluffenhammer. Roll the titles!
Every man lives, not every man truly dies.
Guns may be that way. Let's go the other way.
Oh, I like how subdued that was. The welcome to the Fluffenhammer. I liked that. And you've got a penchant. You really do. It seems like every time we sit down to record this, you come up with this, because I have no idea what he's going to paraphrase or quote. I have no idea. He just pulls it out of the air. And it's always, without fail, it's a reference that I get, always, and it's something that combines my interests. It combines, a number of my interests, like the obvious, Blade Runner / Do Android Stream of Electric Sheep quote there. Brilliant. And I am, at the moment, on a bit of a cyberpunk kick.
Are you?
And a sort of science fiction kick. So, yeah, that's very peculiar.
That's
very peculiar.
Really weird. Because the reason I picked that this week, I will have to point out, ladies and gentlemen, most of the time, we sit down, I press record, and then I realise I don't have anything for the cold intro. And I have to quickly drag something out of my butt as fast as I can.
Impromptu, I like it. I like improv.
It's one of those things where I think if I tried to plan it ahead, it wouldn't work as well.
It's funny you should say that, because I do my own podcast at the moment, the Strange Playgrounds podcast, and I've tried a couple of times to sit down and plan it out, to get some structure to it. It just doesn't work. It is not the way. I mean, I know it's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
People create differently. And I know some people work really well to a rigid structure. Yeah. I just don't. I cannot do it. It doesn't work for me at all. It comes out stilted, and I find myself trying to cleave too synthetically to that structure. And it just kills the vivacity of it. It kills the verve of it. You know.
Yeah. I find it restrictive. I find it very restrictive.
Yeah.
I like to be able to be freeform and play around a lot when it comes to recording.
Which I think is overt. I think is obvious to anyone who listens to the Fluffenhammer.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, we come into these recordings with the barest idea of what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely, and then often we don't talk about it.
No.
We talk about something else entirely.
We do have this wonderful history of planning something and then recording something and then realising that we haven't even begun.
Yeah.
To discuss the thing that we were originally meant to talk about.
I mean, if you go back and listen to the back episodes of the Fluffenhammer, which I sometimes do, there are these threads and seeds of potential subjects that we've sown but haven't explored completely. Which is cool, because we can reference back to them later. We can actually pick up the threads of conversation later. It becomes what they become are overarching themes in a very sort of narrative way.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like working that way in almost everything I do.
Well, the two big things that I really wanted to do when we started this little entire project was that, one, I wanted to explore Games Workshop's worlds in a way that hadn't been done before.
Well, it's so easy, isn't it, to fall into the familiar trap.
It is, yeah.
It's so easy just to, to do those podcasts or those videos where you just go to the book and you talk about, you give little quotes and you talk about what's on this page and that page and what this background. But we all know this. The thing is, those of you out there likely already know the vast majority of the background itself. And if you don't, you can go and get it. You can go and read the books. You can go and look at the websites or whatever. What I like about the Fluffenhammer is that we get to talk about our interpretations and extrapolations of that background.
And then hopefully start conversations with people who either agree or disagree.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got my. Eventually, I'm going to get my friend Tom on here. That's going to be very interesting indeed.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, he comes at this hobby from two perspectives that we've never had before. In fact, I've never even come across before. But we'll leave that for when we can get him on here.
Yeah, no worries. So, George.
Hello.
Happy Soul Day.
Yes, happy Soul Day to everyone out there. I'm not kidding. I'm going to bake a cake later, I think, and see what comes out, just in celebration. This is great. This is really cool. I have rarely seen excitement to this degree. Certainly over an AOS release. The internet is absolutely on fire.
It really is, and I am seeing positivity swirling around like some wondrous sticky tornado. It is fantastic.
It really is. People are really excited for this, and with good reason. I mean, it's one of those very rare Games Workshop releases where everything seems to have culminated very beautifully. So the box set looks superb.
Yes, it does.
I mean, the miniatures look amazing on both sides. The Stormcast look great. The Night Haunts look, for me, even better. The Night Haunts just look amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really got my attention today.
You know what? Most people. I mean, I don't have any particular beef with the Stormcast in the way that a lot of other people do. I quite like them, and I'm liking them more as they go on. But the Night Haunts really excite me. I love the notion that they're not necessarily reinventing the undead, but they are introducing a new aspect to them.
Yeah, it's going back and looking at what the undead are and extrapolating those little moments, those little ideas and concepts, and just building on them into something that's original.
Yeah, it's new and it's interesting and exciting, and it's something that they've tried to do before, obviously, but has never really worked because they just didn't have the technology to fulfill it. But now, I mean, these wonderful... I mean, this is an aspect... I mean, I like the vampire aspect of the undead too. Who doesn't love vampires? I love vampires. And that is something that will always intrigue me, but I really like these ghosts and these spirits and these... It's got this wonderful sort of coldness to it, which I really like. There is a sort of palpable dread to them, which I find more frightening than, say, the skeletons and the zombies and whatnot, because it's a kind of spiritual horror.
Yeah.
It's a metaphysical horror. These things, they have metaphysical aspects too, which I really like. You've got the executioner and that guy with the locks and the chains, which they suggest narrative. They suggest a kind of story that they can do something to you that's far and beyond just hacking you down with a sword or just eating you or something like that.
Yep, the each model in there tells its own little tale. You get an idea of what it's about just by seeing it.
Yeah, have you seen the pictures of the Banshees yet?
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
They really are. And the Mortarks.
Really lovely.
The new Mortarks are incredible.
Oh, bloody hell. Those... I mean, I do not collect undead as such, but I'm going to be getting particularly the Mortark of Grief.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She looks like a Dark Souls boss.
She really does.
I guarantee you somebody in that design studio is playing those From Software games. I guarantee you, because you could transplant it into a Dark Souls game and it would be... You don't have to do anything to it. It looks like it's from that world.
Yeah, it really does. It is.
Which is, if that's where they're going, fine. That's all good to me. I mean, there's so much potential there. I mean, if they're going to, like for Chaos, for example, they could look to Bloodborne.
Yeah.
All of that wonderful Lovecraftian stuff in Bloodborne would fit so well in the Forces of Chaos. Go for it. Yes, please do this. Expand those ranges. Bring in stuff we've never seen before. This is, all of these armies, all of these forces have been so codified in the past. They've been so restricted and codified by their aesthetics, by their background. Certainly when the old world was still around, there was not much you could actually do to change them. Now, they're just exploding them wide. All parameters off, done.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the full background yet, but from what I understand, the Night Haunts, I love this element of them. The Night Haunts are the result. Nagash did intend to create them, that's certainly true.
Yes.
But there's sort of like the ambient Night Haunts that have been accidentally created because of the failure of what Nagash was attempting with the Black Pyramid in Shi'ar.
Necroquake!
So, a Necroquake. So basically, these quakes of death energy, of necromantic energy, have been rippling throughout the realms and have been causing the dead to stir, but not just the corpses, but the spirits.
Yeah.
Are just swarming throughout the realms now, which is so cool.
Well, a lot of the
It's
Night
so
Haunt
cool.
based around the armies that were laying siege to Nakashazar when the Black Pyramid started up.
Yeah.
They all got their souls ripped out of them.
It's, the potential for narrative is great.
It really is.
They're tormented. They some of them they may have been noble knights once, or even maybe there was Stormcast once that have sort of been snared by Nagash. I love it. I absolutely love it. You can tell so many stories in this. It's brilliant. This is the kind of thing that excites me. I think it excites a lot of players, actually. It's not the nuts and bolts stuff. I think it is the role-playing stuff. It's the storytelling, narrative stuff that excites most players. And this is the way to do it. This is the way to get people excited over it.
Oh, 110%. What's really grabbing me about AOS 2.0 is that nothing's off the table.
Yep.
We don't know what's coming next. We don't know where it's going to go.
Like, you can't predict it, can you? I mean, there's so much stuff that's come out that just came out of nowhere. The Ideneth, for me, out of nowhere.
Yes.
I had no idea that was happening, and suddenly you've got sea elves. You've got... initially what we thought it was fish people, obviously. We were thinking sort of like Innsmouth, Dagon style fish people.
Yeah.
And what we got was kind of that, but kind of not. It was more subtle and more interesting than that, actually.
Yeah, soul-broken, blind sea elves.
Yeah, that bring a metaphysical ocean with them wherever they go.
There is no way anybody can't tell me that's cool. That isn't cool.
It's
Sorry.
really
It's
cool.
amazing.
It's really cool, and I love the fact that, like all of the elf forces now, they are ambiguous.
Yes.
There are not evil elves and good elves. There are these really weird, broken, twisted, ambiguous entities. The Sylvaneth have got a real dark side to them. And their miniatures are fantastic. I love the woodland aspect, the dryad aspect. And I love that. The Daughters of Cain, totally ambiguous. They have the most negative aspect of all of them, and yet fight on the side of order. They can be trusted to a degree, the Daughters of Cain. They're not going to turn on their allies. They're vicious and they're cruel and they're sadistic, but they are not going to turn on their allies because they have a common enemy. The Ideneth are probably the most ambiguous of all of them, because their aesthetic suggests that they're erring more towards the light than the darkness, and yet they are these soul thieves. They are kind of vampiric. They require stolen souls to sustain themselves, and that's behind a lot of their activities. It's really cool. I love it. I love the fact they're introducing these ambiguities to the races, and they're not so morally defined anymore. Same is true of the Stormcast. They used to be, once upon a time, what ho thou evil villain. They were the lordly knights of light. They were the crusaders. They're not anymore. They're not that anymore. They're really ambiguous, and Sigmar is not the Lord of Light and Hope that he proclaims to be. There are ambiguities here.
Have you been paying attention to the Role Models comic?
I haven't, no.
There is a wonderful one where you have a Stormcast standing in front of allies and say, "Greeting, allies! Welcome to this conclave of order. Together we stand for everything true and good in this realm. You have a Sylvaneth. Good. I'm more neutral, like a force of nature.
Yeah.
Daughter of Cain. I offer sacrifices to the god of murder. Ideneth. I hunt and kill to feed my withered soul. Some guys just turn around. Saurus. Raw.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, one of the ways they could, and it seems that they are taking the Stormcast, is that they could be very oppressive.
Yes.
They could be oppressive in the same way that, like, inquisitorial characters are oppressive. They ostensibly have a very strong morality, and they are fighting against the forces of chaos and of the undead, of corruption and of decay and entropy. And yet, to do so, you could very easily tell the story of a Stormcast-dominated city, for example, where no one's allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
Where the penalty for everything is death.
Yeah.
The slightest infraction, because they are so paranoid about the forces of chaos getting a foothold. You know, and in that regard, it's the same. You know, it's what we talked about in a previous episode, where you can very easily have a lawful good character being the villain or the antagonist.
Easily, when it comes to this, one of the cool things about the Stormcast, and one of the things I really want to see explored in the future, is the automated versions of humanity that eventually happen when the Stormcast have been reforged so many times. There's very little left.
There's nothing left of them but Sigmar's will, is there?
Exactly.
That's basically it.
There's
They do become a bit like the Necrons in that regard. They become almost like automata, don't they?
Do you know how that works?
Not entirely. All I know is that over successive regenerations, they basically just lose parts of themselves.
It's not that they lose. Once again, there's another malign portents. I'm going to get back to talking about malign portents in a second with a giddy laugh. But first, there's one of them where one of the Sancrosact Chamber they guard the doors to the Six Smiths, right? Mm-hmm. And what the Six Smiths do is, when a soul comes back to Sigmarian, they hammer and cut out the parts of the Stormcast that are broken or worried or...
Right.
So one of the stories is, I lived, I died, I was killed, I died for Sigmar, this is a way, this is my way. But as it's going on, it's like, I remember this death, I remember this death, I cannot bear it, the pain is too great. I had to kill my family who had fallen to the undeath plague. How could I live like this? And so the Six Smiths are cutting out that part of him that...
Right. So they're cutting away their humanity, their will, their consciousness, their memories, anything that could compromise their function, basically. That's really interesting.
How much more interesting did the Stormcast get all of a sudden?
Yeah, they do. They become more like the Space Marines, which obviously they resemble them, which they are. You know, they are. I mean, the accusation that they are the Sigmarines, you know, the Space Marines in AOS, that's entirely true. But that's not a bad thing. Yeah. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's something the forces of order and of light have always lacked in the fantasy setting. I mean, if you go back to the old world, you compare, say, the forces of chaos, which have always had, like, Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights and the Chosen and, you know, these big, beefy, elite, interesting units that are aesthetically very interesting too. Compare them to the forces of the Empire. They don't really have much in that way. You know, the ones that can go toe-to-toe with them. The dynamic was different. That's kind of what the Stormcast fulfill. One of the coolest things, I think, about where the Stormcast appear to be going is that they... And it's not just the Stormcast either, it's the entirety of the Order. There's no good guys. No, I know that's something I love. I mean, I know that it's a kind of a postmodern thing, and there's a lot of people who rail against it, that you know, there's no absolutism. I think it's great. I think it's interesting because it's more psychologically interesting. You get better characters that way.
You get better heroes.
Yeah, you get better heroes. You get better villains, for that matter.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
we've got the best villain in the goddamn world here. We've got Nagash.
Nagash is great. I love Nagash. And what I love about Nagash more than anything is the irony that he encapsulates. He is the one who can stop chaos.
Yes.
He is the one who could potentially destroy the forces of entropy and create perfect peace. Yeah. If you want perfect peace in the mortal realms, you let Nagash win.
Yeah, his plan for the Great Black Pyramid, it's right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's one of those moments of hang on, and
Yeah.
when I was recording the final Malign Importance, one of the parts that was going through my brain was going, I'm actually not against this as a plan.
No. Given what the Chaos Gods are capable of and what they would do if they managed to, say, take over Azurheim or somewhere like that, you know, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Nagash's vision is not necessarily a negative one.
No, it's not good if you are a living human being.
No,
yeah, and it is a.
It depends on it depends on like the scale you look at it on, isn't it? From an individual perspective, yeah, it's pretty bad because your individuality is going to be taken away from you, unless you rise very high in his hierarchy.
That's true.
Because
yes.
you know, you still have individuals under his employ. I mean, Manfred's very individual.
Yes.
As is Neferata. You know, both of them have their own agendas and their own plans that don't necessarily accord with Nagash's.
No.
Even Archon. You know, Archon, despite being the fawning sycophant that he is, has some degree of personal will. He can express distaste for Nagash's actions, which he does in one of the Malign Portents, you know?
Yes, he does.
Which is really cool. I thought he was more like an automata, you know? That he was more... He would never, ever, 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 ever gainsay Nagash. But he can provide counsel if he thinks something is wrong. Which is really cool. And I'm sure the same is true of the new Mortarchs. They're going to have their own, you know, their own animus and their own personality behind them. And you can see they do. You can see they do from the miniatures. The miniatures express so much.
The one on... oh, my word. Was it the Mortarch of Pain, is it? That's driving around on that giant... whatever it is, the giant beast.
Oh, that thing. It's the Mortarch of something. I can't remember which one it is. But he's awesome.
Word.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's an absolute joy. He's one of those miniatures I'm just going to buy to paint.
Yeah.
Because it requires nothing. It requires no conversion work.
No.
It is just perfect. And this is something I very rarely said about Games Workshop when in the early days, I converted everything when I was a kid, and you know, it's kind of my thing. I like to convert everything, even the miniatures I really like. I'm going to convert Magnus when I put him together to fit better into my army. I'm going to do some bits and pieces with him, but some of the latter miniatures are perfect. They don't require conversion. The Greater Demons, for example.
Very true.
They don't require any conversion at all. They are perfect. They encapsulate everything about the entities they're trying to portray. The Mortarchs in general. Most of the undead range at the moment, the new stuff coming out of the undead, require nothing. They are perfect. That Mortarch of grief is my favourite.
Yeah, that thing. That's the type of thing that I really want to buy. Not to put into my army.
No, just to have it around.
Just to build a really elaborate base and maybe a frame for it, and just have it as a display piece.
Yeah, Nagash himself, actually. Nagash himself is I wouldn't want to touch Nagash to convert him. I would just want to have him as a display piece.
I've got a plan for my Nagash. When I finally get round to buying one, I have a plan for it, and it's yes.
I mean, the conversions I've seen that work are the dioramic ones.
Yeah.
So there is one that was featured in White Dwarf where he's sat on his throne. He's sort of lounging on his throne, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
The plan I've got is I'm going to completely replace his head. With a what the hell do you call it? It's a Dark Eldar pain engine, the Talos engine.
Oh, the Talos! You're going to replace it with a Talos head. Interesting.
So it's got that,
I love those heads.
Yeah.
I love those heads.
Yeah. And then give him a giant sword instead of the staff. And the idea I'm going to have is that over here in the realm, Drakenfels has also ascended to godhood.
So that's your little... I love that. You know, you've got space to do that now.
Yes.
You've got space to do that. And also, you've got an archetype that fits Drakenfels in Nagash. Awesome. That's awesome.
So
I love that.
I like the idea of Drakenfels sort of making his reappearance onto the mortal realms as, I'm coming for you, Nagash. I'm going to get you.
Yeah. An alternative god of death,
Yep.
you know?
But there's
Very cool.
There's
what?
a thing in one of the Malign Portents where a god of the forgotten dead.
Oh, right.
is-
Another death god.
Oh, there was hundreds. There was hundreds.
Oh,
of
I
them.
know. He ate them all.
He did.
didn't
He did. Which
I
is
love
beautiful.
it. He ate the gods. I mean, that's fucking metal.
Oh, it really.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus God, he ate. This is what I love about Nagash, right? This is what I love about him. He was a mortal man. He was a frightened little boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where he comes from. When you read the earliest stuff about Nagash, of him like as a kid wandering amongst the tombs of Nehekhara, he's a frightened little boy.
Yeah.
And he's managed to get to a point, to ascend to a status where he's eating the gods of death.
It
Wow.
is crazy. Absolutely
I
crazy.
love it. Man, I love
Just
Nagash.
because you
Bloody
mentioned
hell.
things being metal, I do have to make a little aside here.
Yes.
And that is that on Instagram, a Lucky Deuce, I apologise if I'm saying that wrong, he left a really nice little comment for us, which was, here it is, Deadlifts and the Fluffenhammer podcast. I usually use death metal, but the show is so damn good. I find myself not missing the music very much. It's been a lot of interesting discussion on 40k and Age of Sigmar that didn't initially pique my interest. Anyway, I'm out of things to paint, and that sucks. I've got a series of gore events coming up, and I don't want to suck. I might just shadow and rook a bunch of great craft beer. It'll be cheaper. Time to get training. So with all that being said,
Super.
if you are listening to us now, Lucky Juice, I just really quickly want to say,
that
My name is Nagash. I am the god of the dead. You will fail me. Serve before I
death metal.
I got a little bit of EastEnders from that.
Everybody's going to die. We're all
Christmas.
gonna die in lots of nasty ways.
But thank you so much for the comments, by the way. That's really, really heartening. Thank you so much. It's lovely. It's lovely to know that people are enjoying it to that degree. It's fabulous. But yeah, Nagash is the metal. He is the epitome of metal in AOS, isn't he?
He is. He really is. I love Nagash so much.
I mean, I'm a Chaos guy. I shouldn't love him as much as I do, but I do. The only thing I love in
Nagash's
AOS,
entire plan was to kill everybody to starve the Chaos Gods.
That's the way to do it.
How metaphysical is that?
That's true.
Beautiful.
That's a better plan than anything Sigmar's come up with.
Well, and now I keep going back to them, and I'm going to come to the reason why I keep coming back to them in a second. There's another bit of the Malign Portents where Nagash is musing over Sigmar maybe calling himself the God King, but he still sees every problem as something he can hit with a hammer.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
It is!
It is absolutely true. Well, the Stormcast are the manifestation of that, aren't they?
They are.
Instead of thinking about how the metaphysics works of chaos, he's thinking about how to defeat their armies.
Yeah, how to take territory.
How to drive them back. Because that's his nature.
Yeah.
That's how Sigmar was born. He was born into the barbarian tribe, you know? That's how he functions. That's what he is. Whereas Nagash is logic. Mm-hmm. He is pure, unemotional, cold logic with the perspective of eons behind it.
Yes.
He thinks in much wider terms than even any of the other gods do, because they're still kind of polluted by their mortal origins to a degree, and that includes Alariel, it includes Morathai, it certainly includes Malarion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to tell what he's doing, isn't it? He seems to have this really laconic kind of I don't care about him, doesn't he?
He does. He really does.
Malarion, but he's fucking powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, he is powerful enough to put Morathai in her place.
I am fascinated to see what the Shadow Elves are going to be. The Shadow Elves.
Oh,
sorry.
they'll come out.
Oh, yeah.
They'll come
Oh,
out
yeah.
eventually. My guess is next year.
When it comes to Age of Sigmar, I don't really mind when stuff comes out because I'm just fascinated to see what it's going to be.
But do you know what they could do? I was thinking about this the other day. You know the Dark Elder Mandrakes, or the Drukhari Mandrakes?
Yes.
They could port them over right
Oh
away.
yeah.
Port them over, and they could even, if they're really clever, intermingle the fluff about them. Because of course, Malarion is the lord of Ulgu, of shadows. They're shadow creatures. They come from the realm of shadows. If they're really clever, they could just have a little subtle bridge between the mortal realms and the 40k universe here. Not overt, just subtle. You know, and if they're going to go down that aesthetic, then I think that the mandrakes provide the perfect basis for shadow elves.
Well, I think what we're going to see is a lot of the technology used to make the current undead are going to get used for the shadow elves.
Oh god, yeah. So they're sort of streaming and shadowy and not quite there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that could be so much fun.
Really good.
And Malarion himself obviously is going to be a big fuck off elf dragon thing. He's going to be insane when he comes out. If he comes out, you know. He will. Of course he will. Of course he will. How can you resist doing a model of that?
It's one of those things where...
What's he going to look like, though?
I don't know.
What's he going to look like? I mean, there is some artwork, that's like slightly symbolic artwork that portrays him in one of the early AOS books. But it's not like... It's small and it's more symbolic than actual.
Yeah.
And he looks like Malekith, but with dragon wings. You know? He's a bit more bestial than Malekith is.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And also the dynamic between them and the Daughters of Cain is going to be really interesting because they are allies. You know, Malekith has given Morothai a small part of Ulgu to reign over. It's like the most horrible part. He's basically given her like Grimsby. You know, he's given her Hull. You know, it's like you go there. All right, you go and rule over Hull. All right.
Mother, I give to you Slough.
Yeah, there is. What I love in the Daughters of Cain book, it talks about how there is some tension between them because of that. Because of course she betrayed him in the end time.
She did.
She turned to Slaanesh and much regretted it because she got eaten by him. You know. I just love the fact that she is like Nagash. She is really cool.
Yes.
She is this mortal character, ostensibly, who has survived so much.
The only thing that's stopping me from doing a Daughters of Cain is cash.
Cash and time. For me, it's time.
Yeah,
it's time. I mean, I have to focus down. I've got to focus on my Shattered Suns. I've got to. Because they need to be done. I want to get them done. I want to get them painted. I want to get them sorted because I've got a very clear vision for them. But there's so much I would like to do. I want to do Morothai, both versions of her. I maybe not a Daughters of Cain army, but I want to paint those miniatures because that whole thing, the sort of snake-bodied, human torsoed with wings thing, just does it for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
That is, for me, just a beautiful aesthetic. I love it. It's why I'm so excited for when Fulgrim hits, obviously.
I actually have a question I'm going to come to, and I think it's one that we need to discuss in great depth.
Oh, okay.
But before we get to that, I do have an announcement I need to make.
Okay.
It's over! The malign importance is done! 60 episodes!
Brilliant.
60! There was 60, George!
There are a few more of them than you anticipated.
I expected 10!
Yeah.
60!
Awesome. Awesome.
You don't know how happy I was to finish it off. The last one should be out now, actually. It came out this morning. It was scheduled to come out this morning.
Brilliant.
And
I imagine that it's going to be like the Aftershocks, isn't it? It's going to be like setting out maybe what the new state of play is.
What the last one was the one that came out where the Black Pyramid span up.
And didn't work.
Exactly.
Ultimately, it jarred.
What I'll probably do is I might do an epilogue. Once I've got the Soul Wars book, I might write up an epilogue just to finish things off. And then get that released as the final Malign Portents. But right now, as things are, it's done. It
Yep.
is done. There is a strong chance I will never have to say the words malign importance ever again.
Unless they make it like a transitional thing, a regular transitional
No, it's
thing.
done. They've said it's done. And
I wonder.
there is a...
Because they don't. It doesn't necessarily have to be the malign portents anymore. It could just be like they could call it something else, but it's still the same dynamic. You know, it's short stories that move on the state of play.
I've learnt my lesson, George. And do you know what that lesson is?
What's
If
that?
they keep putting out free short stories, I'm going to record them. That's the lesson. That's the lesson I've learned. I can't stop myself.
Well, why not? It gives people access to them, doesn't
Yeah,
it? That's
yeah.
what I like. You know, people who maybe don't enjoy reading so much or
Yeah.
don't have time for them, it gives them access to them, which I like. And the malign portents are actually essential. You actually do need to read them to understand what's happening out there.
Yeah, and it gave the Age of Sigmar setting a hell of a lot of flavour.
It really did. I mean, I love the stuff with Nagash and the Black Pyramid in particular.
Yeah.
The mechanism of the Black Pyramid fascinates me. I like the notion of it spinning on its axis and sort of grinding away at the metaphysics of the mortal realms.
Drilling
you know,
through
unsettling
reality.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Love it, love
Do you
it,
know what
love
the
it,
coolest
love
thing
it.
about Malign Portents was?
What's that?
How clever that set of stories was put together.
Yeah.
Stuff that seemed to be just this random little tale that was introducing you to the Ideneth, for example. There's a story of the Ideneth and it seems to exist purely to give you an idea of how the Ideneth's Aether Sea works and how they fly along.
Clever.
But what it actually does is set up part of the end.
Right, okay.
Because they're using the fish things that they're swimming around on, the big eels. They're using them to escape Oryx. And
Right, okay.
they trap and trick the Oryx into running into a realm gate that is underneath quicksand. Right? In the final story, there's this bit where all of these Oryx just appear out of nowhere, blink, look confused, and charge at Nagashazar.
All right.
Hang on, what? Oh, that's from... Oh! But it's absolutely full of them.
Yeah.
The
Very clever.
the Spark Eye finding out about the how the Black Pyramid's going to work. That is a story from really early on, where there's a Grey Seer who is trying to either kill off his enemies, as Grey Seers do, or gain some power. And Spark Eye, the Death Runner, assassinates him. And in that room, there is all of the information on the Black Pyramid, which is where that...
Right.
And oh my word, this just ties
Clever.
together so well.
So they've been littering suggestions of what's happening for ages. So
Yeah.
it's very well planned. They know what's going to happen for, I would argue, maybe the first time in their history.
Yeah.
They know... They plan very far ahead with the background as to what is actually going to happen. And I think this is essential given the new states of play that they've come up with for both AOS and 40k, which is they're not static anymore. There are things that they introduce that change the states of play very quickly. We know they're doing it in 40k because we've got the big campaigns coming up. That one that's coming up in 2019 between the Black Legion, the Space Wolves, and the Sisters of Battle. That will change the state of play. I've no doubt that's going to
big
change
time.
things in the 40k
I
universe.
hope they do something like Malign Portents for that.
I've no doubt. I've no doubt they will, and there will be stuff littering the codices as
Of
well.
course,
obviously,
yeah.
up to that point. In AOS, well, we know how they're doing it in AOS, and I imagine my guess is they're going to maintain this state of sort of fractiousness,
Yes.
where nothing is entirely fixed. And I imagine every so many years they're going to change the state of play by introducing something new.
Yeah.
Be it a campaign, be it like an army book or something that changes the state of play a little bit to keep it fresh, to keep it interesting.
Well, this is the idea with Age of Sigmar, that it's constantly evolving. It's a they call it a living game. That it doesn't sit in its own setting for too long.
Well, that was the mistake with the with Fantasy Battle, wasn't it? That
the
was
old
the mistake
world.
with the old world,
Completely,
you know?
completely.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got as much affection for the old world as anybody does who was like a fan in that era, as much affection as anyone. But the raw fact of the matter is, it really became stale.
It did. It really did.
really became... Well, you couldn't do anything with it, could you?
No.
After a while, you couldn't do it. And we saw that. We saw that in the Storm of Chaos campaign, the original Storm of Chaos campaign, way back when Archaon won.
Yes.
essentially Archaon was at the gates of what was the capital city of the Empire?
Uldorf.
Yeah, he was at the very gates with the combined forces of chaos, the demons, the beastmen, every chaos tribe you could think of, and then he'd won. He'd effectively won.
Then he got
they
head-butted by an orc.
I know, he got bloody head-butted by an orc. And then they introduced all this stuff to retcon it all.
Yes.
Which was really frustrating. That really annoys people.
And it did.
That really annoys people.
Furious.
Well, quite right.
Yeah.
Quite right, too. I mean, it's the same thing that you got in 40k with the Eye of Terror campaign.
Yeah.
Where, again, Chaos won. Chaos unambiguously won. But they introduced some nonsense to sort of retcon it, to maintain the state of play instead of actually moving it on. Which is what they should have done.
Yeah. Well,
it's what they should have done.
What they should have done back then was turn the old world into an apocalyptic setting.
Yeah, that would have done it.
I don't mean old end-time style. I mean the current status quo is that the apocalypse is happening around you.
Yeah, so Altdorf has been sacked. Archaon is sat on the throne. The Emperor is dead. And you've got scattered bands of humanity fighting back.
Yeah,
that would have worked. That would have worked. You would have had the Sylvanians nearby, trying to defend their borders desperately against the encroaching forces of chaos. Yeah, that would have worked.
Yeah.
That would have worked to reinvigorate the setting massively. Massively, but they didn't.
No, and I'm not going to complain too much because then we get what we've got now, and I love Age of Sigmar.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, Age of Sigmar's completely. I mean, that went above and beyond.
Yes,
it really has. It's changed everything.
So the question I had was, where do things go from here? How do things change? Because we know that the Great Black Pyramid, one of the things it did was it unrestrained magic. Magic became unshackled. It is now less controllable. It is wild.
Yeah,
that
so
as
now,
a concept makes me so eye-rollingly happy.
It's brilliant. I mean, what has happened already as a result is that wizards are way more powerful and way more risky.
Yep.
You have to be very careful how you use those eternal spells because they can be turned on you.
They can.
Very easily.
Yep.
Very easily.
Oh.
But it means that magic-heavy armies are really powerful now.
Yes.
Like, Disciples of Zeech are making out like bandits.
Yes, they...
they are like... in this current state of play, they are the army.
Yes, they really are.
They really are, because the ability to unbind your opponent's spells and also cast your own from ridiculous distances across the entire battlefield, more or less, and with so many wizards in play who can cast or unbind, it makes them very, 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 very nasty indeed. But in terms of background, well, a lot's going to happen. It means that things are way more risky now. It means that there's going to be way more mutants knocking about.
Yep.
I'd imagine. You're going to get a state of unsettlement amongst the mortal realms, because things are going to be happening that have no explanation and have no logic, because it's essentially what in D&D is called wild magic, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
It's unrestricted and unrestrained magic. So I imagine you're going to get like more realm gates opening, more portals tearing open. I imagine Slaanesh is going to be free very soon.
Well, this is one of the big things I think that is worth discussing. The fact that magic becomes unrestrained, is this the thing that frees Slaanesh from...
Oh, I think it's probably going to be it. Or at least it's going to be one of the things that breaks his chains or that loosens his binds a little bit. Yeah, well, I think so.
There's two things I think that are going to lead into Slaanesh's release. One is the fact that magic becomes wild. The second is that Zeech has been playing a game in the background, and that game is only just starting to make its appearance.
Oh yes.
What's he called? Not the emissary.
The Changeling?
The Changeling, thank you.
Yeah,
the Changeling has been doing something in the lead up to the Soul War. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. What you can hear in the background is my dog, who has decided to grab hold of a plastic tray, sit right next to me, and go, yum, 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 yum. Drop it. Good girl. Right. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to edit that out. I just want you to know that this is what I have to go through every day.
But yeah, I mean, Zeech effectively had a hand in what happened with the Black Pyramid, didn't he?
Yes.
He basically has he seems to have orchestrated Nagash's activities to a certain degree, to the point whereby he almost threatened himself. Like if Nagash had done what he intended, then it would have really harmed Zeech and all the Chaos powers.
Yes.
But it didn't.
No. Because
it didn't.
He played the long game in order to let Nagash get as far as he could and then fail, which then created wild magic, which then everything that follows each is now dancing with joy. Like
obviously. I mean, this could potentially put Zeech in the ascendance, couldn't it?
Yeah.
This could make him rise above Khorne.
Oh yes.
In the pantheon, this could actually be I would love to see that in future versions of AOS in the background. I would like to see the pantheon shifting about a bit.
Well, this is something that hurts Khorne. It knackers Khorne completely, because Khorne
in every
hates
conceivable
and
way.
is weak against magic.
He hates magic. This totally weakens Khorne's hold on the mortal realms. Hates magic. Slaanesh, he is the antithesis of Slaanesh.
Yep.
So Slaanesh's release would put him on the hot foot.
Yep.
Definitely. So what they can do now is play with the Chaos Pantheon, and please do it.
Yeah.
Please do it, because Khorne has always been on top. Although it's difficult to say because it's chaos and it's kind of shifting and changing. Generally speaking, the way it goes, the hierarchy of chaos is Khorne, Zeech, Nurgle, Slaanesh. That's in order of influence and power in the realm of chaos. It changes depending on circumstance, but generally that's what it's like. Change it around a bit. Have Khorne diminishing a little bit. Have Slaanesh or Zeech rising above,
Yep.
I would like to see that.
Do.
And they could do it with Slaanesh's release. Maybe, depending on how they do it, they could have him, explode across the mortal realms. Maybe, feeding on some of the souls that were stolen from him, perhaps, or something to that effect, and have him really powerful for a brief period.
The other thing, which I think we're going to see happen I don't know if it's going to be this year or early next year. I think it'll probably be early next year. I think we're going to see an explosion of Skaven. And an explosion is the correct word.
They've been hinting at it. They've definitely been hinting at it. The Skaven have been way more prominent in the background recently than they have been for years.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that's happened here is that the Skaven are one of the foundations of Nagash's failure.
Yeah, and they always have been.
Oh, yeah.
There's a long history.
It makes me so happy that this is the case, because it's...
Yeah.
Whenever Nagash looks like he's about to do big stuff, the Skaven...
What happens?
Sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. They mess him up.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. I love it because it lends this degree of poetry to the dynamic. The fact that this keeps happening over the centuries. They are nemeses to one another. I really love that. I really love it.
I'm just a little bit upset that at no point did they take over some kind of famous prince and beat him around the face again.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, I love that story. I love that story. Very, very cool indeed.
But, so I think with the rise of magic and emboldened by the fact that they have given Nagash a bit of a bloody nose, we're going to see some really cool Skaven stuff hitting in the next year.
Yeah, I think so too. My guess is it's going to be early next year.
I think you're probably right.
That would be my guess, because we have seen quite a lot of the schedule for this year, and it's very full.
It is, yeah.
We know we're getting the Emperor's Children. They're coming. They basically, by all accounts, could drop any time. They're kind of like a wild card.
Yeah.
So the Codex is apparently done. The miniatures are apparently done and have been done for quite a while. There'll be obviously a Slaanesh book in AOS to go with that. We've got the Space Wolves. We've got the Orcs. The Orcs are coming back in a big way, which is I'm massively looking forward to that.
Orcs.
Orcs,
Yeah,
orcs,
big-
orcs, orcs.
with a nice new big prime orc Thraka miniature. Awesome. And the other thing we know, which are imminent, are the Genestealer cults.
Yes, they are. And
Which
oh
is-
my word, do they
Yeah.
look good.
It's exciting, man. It's real. And by the way, Games Workshop, kudos for the way you're handling the leaks at the moment. It's
That
awesome.
video is fantastic.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. I love the way they're doing it, and it's very pleasing to me. It's very pleasing. I imagine entirely deliberate, but I don't care. I love the theatre of
Mm-hmm.
it. I love the theatre of it. It's that sense of humour.
Yeah.
It's that irreverence. You're not taking yourselves as seriously as you used to, which is awesome.
No,
we love
no.
it.
And Duncan's video about Renegade Knights had me proper belly laughing.
Where he's doing the Jonathan Pye thing.
Yeah. The,
Yeah.
the amazement that was, I'm a meme. I'm a meme.
Awesome. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, he's a gem. He's an absolute gem. He really is.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and I want to hold that man in a cuddle.
Yeah. But Genestealer Cult, man, I mean, it's one of those armies that does excite me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say, they excited me when they resurrected them totally unexpectedly back in 2017, 2016?
2016, yeah.
2016, because they've always been a part of the 40k background, always,
Yeah.
but they went away after Rogue Trader, really.
Pretty much,
They
yeah.
just fell away. I mean, you did have a get you buy army list in the second ed Tyranid Codex,
Yeah.
but it was only get you buy, and there were no miniatures for them.
No,
You had to
no,
cobble
no.
them together yourself. But they've always been in the background. They've always been referenced. To have them back is wonderful. And now, for my money, I know they're an adjunct to the Tyranids, but I actually prefer them to the Tyranids myself.
Same. There's something about the insidious nature of them that really sings to me.
And it's also, I think, the human element of them.
Mm.
It's really interesting because it gives them more of a horrific aspect. The horror of the Tyranids is vast and cosmic and very difficult to get a bead on. It's more Lovecraftian,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Whereas the Genestealer Cult is intimate. It's this Cronenbergian body horror thing, and also this weird paranoid, almost Reds under the bed aspect that they have.
Yeah.
You know, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, essentially,
It is.
isn't it? It's the same themes as Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The notion that you have these hidden forces that are insidious and that are, you know, they're so insidious you may not even know you're part of them. You know, it's insidious ideology, but it's also insidious genetics that's infiltrating and corrupting the purity of humanity. I love that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And then you've got the wider horror of the Genestealer cults, which is they're damned.
Yes.
They are total dupes. If they win, they lose.
Yeah.
They lose massively. So basically, what the whole thing with the Genestealer cults is, they are sort of, they're human beings. They're generally human beings, but I'm sure you can get other species of Genestealer cults as well. They're human beings that have been infiltrated by Genestealers, which are vanguard organisms of the Tyranids, and their genetics are polluted by the Genestealers, so that over successive generations they start to produce these abhumans. They start to produce hybrids between human beings and Genestealers, and once they've amassed enough in the way of force and influence and armament, they explode from their host civilizations and take them over, sort of prepare the way for the Tyranid fleets to come and devour everything. And they seem to think, they mingle this imperative with a kind of metaphysics, a kind of deluded metaphysics. They seem to think that the Tyranids are almost like star gods that are going to descend and save them from the corrupt and oppressive regime of the Imperium, and it's not true. It's just not true. What happens is they get eaten along with everything else. They get consumed along with everything else, apart from like the pure strain Genestealers. They just join the Tyranid fleet. But the humans, the abhumans, the hybrids, they just get dissolved. Their genetic matter gets broken down and digested just like everything else.
Yeah, I do like the fact that when it comes to a Genestealer cult, the best thing that can happen to them is being exterminated by the Imperial Guard or something. Yeah.
That's basically the most merciful thing.
It really is.
That can happen to them, isn't it? Because if they win, well, it's horrific.
Yeah, it's actually worse
It's
for
horrific.
everybody.
Yeah, well, and not only because of the fact that they get digested and dissolved, but everything gets taken away from them. All of their beliefs, everything that they built their empire on, everything that their entire ideology gets shown for being a delusion.
Yeah.
And that's so sad in its own way. It's so sad.
There was also something about the idea of the Genestealer cults as they were, where they just lined up and walked into the Tyranid ships. And as much as that is a really dark, cool idea, it never sat right with me. I don't know what it was. I think because it felt like almost like all the energy that went into the Genestealer cult just goes, and now you're done.
It dissipates. And the way they've been rejigged, it gives them this added layer of horror.
Yeah. Which I
and tragedy.
really like, because it's
me too.
Just the idea that they suddenly realise that how wrong they've been and how bad everything has suddenly become, and
it's moribund, isn't it? I mean,
really
it's like it's horrible. It's truly horrible because they can actually start out with noble agendas. These guys, you know, they can be like anarchist cults against the oppressive regime of the Imperium. You know, they can be fighting for a degree of egalitarianism and equality, but it actually transpires that they are just the unwitting dupes of these parasitic aliens. It's part of the 40k universe I really like, this layer of ironic tragedy.
And I've got a plan, George.
Oh yes, what's the plan?
So you know that I've gone for a corrupted Mechanicum army.
Yes.
What's the next step from a corrupted Mechanicum, George?
A corrupted Mechanicum? I don't know. What is the... Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I want a knight.
You're going to do a corrupted knight?
I want to do a corrupted knight.
You could... So... Oh, that would look great.
It really would.
So it has biological components. It's infested.
No. I've got a different idea than that.
Oh, okay.
So the plan I've got is, first thing you do is you put the legs on backwards, so it's mimicking the genes. Basically, so it's what I want to do. So the
digitigrade, yeah. So the legs are I can't say it. Digitigrade, I think is how you say it.
Chicken legs.
Yes, chicken legs, bird legs, anything that has that sort of backward facing knee. It's digitigrade.
So the idea I've got is, what is a knight? What is a titan? It is almost a totem of the Omnissiah.
Oh, right, okay.
So you make the knight to be a totem of the four-armed emperor. But of course, it's not going to be well looked after, is it? So there'll be bits missing, there'll be wires hanging down. The head, of course, needs to be more Genestealery. It needs to have four limbs.
So elongated. Yeah.
It needs to have 4 limbs. I'm going to have hybrids hanging off it, trying to desperately do repair work as it walks along.
Cool.
The thing's going to be a hell of a job to make.
That's good fun, though, isn't it?
But that's good's it going to look?
Yeah, it's going to look great. And it's a great idea, you know, it adds something to the Genestealer cults, I think. It adds like this. Because one thing they don't have is big miniatures.
No, they don't.
Because, of course, they can't really, apart from something like what you're describing there, they can't because they don't operate on battlefields in the same way that almost all of the other armies in 40k do.
No.
They've got this inbuilt narrative, actually, and this inbuilt setting where they operate in the hives, they operate in the industrial mines and whatnot, in alleys and in labyrinths and mine works. So having bigger miniatures is slightly difficult for them, but that's a very good way of introducing them.
My plan is it's a Forge world that's way out onto the... it's being completely forgotten about and ignored because, you know... There's a lot going on at the time.
There's a fair bit going on right now that's distracting in the Imperium.
So my plan is to have basically a planet that's on the verge of being exterminous. The moment that anyone notices it, it's getting exterminated. It's
getting the button. Yeah.
But it's just like, right, well, we need to leave right now.
Yep. Awesome. Although, you know, I mean, these things are everywhere now, aren't they? They've really exploded in recent years. As everything seems to after the Cicatrix Maledictum. They're even on Terra.
Yes, they are.
The Genestealer cults are on Terra, which is a bit of a wow. I mean, how are you going to get rid of them? There's so many people on Terra. They could be anywhere, and they could have infiltrated really deep.
The the cool thing that I find about the Genestealer Cult is that they are like fleas.
Yep.
In the very literal sense. You could kill thousands, but as long as one survives...
They're going nowhere.
Yeah.
They're going nowhere. And also, in fact, you can actually kill all of them. And you could still have a Genestealer infestation because there could be... the genetic material could have already infiltrated other families.
Yep.
And other bloodlines. So somewhere down the line, you could still get an aberrant birth where you have a more fully fledged hybrid. You know, it's insidious. I mean, it's a brilliant vanguard organism in that regard. It's absolutely brilliant. It's very HR Giga. You know, obviously it's very alien, which is what they're designed after. But they've actually become their own thing in recent years. They've evolved to become their own very particular thing, and the new miniatures look fantastic.
I'm trying to work out how I'm going to move them into my biomechanical idea, and the more I look at it, the more I'm just thinking of not Existence, the Naked Lunch. I'm thinking a lot of Naked Lunch, so there is probably going to be a Long Live the New Flesh banner somewhere in my army.
I love the Gunslinger one.
Yes,
the Gunslinger one is fabulous. I love that. The face mask that he's wearing and the flowing rags, and it's just so good. He's so dynamic. Love him.
I'd be interested to see, because I actually thought when they said that the Genestealer Cult was coming out, I thought it would just be almost like the which one was it? Was it the Adeptus Mechanicus? I think it was actually.
Yeah, where there were no new miniatures. It was just the new codex.
Yeah, and the codex itself wasn't a million miles away from what the codex before it was. It was just moving over. But
actually, that would have made a lot of sense because the miniatures range isn't that old and it's complete.
Yeah,
it's got box sets for everything. So. That would have made a lot of sense.
But it looks like it's going to get a little bit of a rejigging and a retwigging as well.
Yep.
Which, I'm all over that. That's brilliant.
All over that, yeah. I mean, the Aberrants, obviously, are going to have a new box set, and they look great. They look very Cronenbergian indeed. Very sort of John Carpenter's The Thing. They've got that quality going on about them, which is great.
What I'm thinking I might do is I might attempt to get a fully working Genestealer Cult army ready for the Fluff and Meat when we go.
The Fluff and Meat,
when we go down to Nottingham to meet everybody.
That's a great idea.
So, but then on the other hand, I really want to get the Caradron Overlords ready for going down to the Fluff and Meat.
Tricky, isn't it? Tricky. What a pest, yeah. That's one of the big problems at the moment. I mean, it's one of the big problems, and it's a problem that's not a problem. It's like first world problems.
It very much is, yeah.
It's what do I get done? Because there's so much. Games Workshop are releasing, and I don't want to sound sycophantic. I mean, to contrast, I was one of those people who really was railing against them when we were in the dark times. You know, absolutely, I did long screeds against them when we were in the dark times. But now we're not. Now that they've pulled themselves up on their bootstraps and they're doing such good work, I want to sing their praises as unambiguously. And there's so much good stuff. There's so much good coming out of them, and I just cannot keep up with it. I cannot keep up with it. I think one of the essential things for a hobbyist at the moment is having some focus.
Oh god, yeah. Because
it's
the moment you lose focus, you are doomed.
You're dead. You're going to die beneath an avalanche of plastic miniatures. You will die screaming. You will drown in them. You'll be able to swim in them like Scrooge McDuck can in his money bin, you know?
I actually have Hammerhal sitting there, and I've had it for 2 months, and I still haven't even taken the shrink wrapping off it.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I've got Magnus the Red, and I've got to do him, and I haven't unboxed him yet. I've had him for ages. I've had him for absolutely ages, and I need to do it, but he requires planning.
Yeah.
He's one of those miniatures. He's obviously going to be the centerpiece of the army.
Oh, yes, without a doubt.
I want to just convert him lightly to bring him into line with my Shattered Suns, you know? So that's going to require some planning too, because I don't want to ruin the miniature for want of converting it. So yeah, there's all of that. That's a project. That's an absolute project with a capital P, that is. you just don't want to ruin it because it's such a beautiful miniature. It's such. I mean, it's my favourite of the Primarchs thus far. It's my favourite. Morty's awesome. I love Mortarion too, but Magnus is the one that does it for me.
When it comes to Fulgrim, the thing that really I look at him, and all I can think of is
You mean Fulgrim? Do you mean Morty?
No. For Fulgrim.
Magnus,
sorry. Oh,
Magnus.
God. Whoa, Adam.
Was that well, Fulgrim, that's a very Freudian slip on every level, isn't it?
Oh, look.
That's a very...
Look, it's the Michelin Man. And the Goodyear blimp. Over there. Ignore my slips. Yes,
anyway, yes.
For Magnus, yes, that's who I'm talking about, Magnus.
I wonder why you've got Fulgrim on your mind. I can't imagine.
No.
Can't imagine why that would be.
Oh, yeah. When it comes to the Primarchs, the Demon Primarchs, the part of me just wants to paint them up in bronze or something like that, and just have them as display pieces in statuesque, shiny metal, you know.
That's a nice idea, actually. I like that.
Mostly because I don't want to ruin them with a paint job. You're going to need to plan them out. Oh, without a doubt.
I don't usually do that for my miniatures. I tend to be a bit more sort of impressionist with them. And it just tends to be like I wildly experiment and then something sticks, something works, and that's it. That's the paint scheme I use. But Magnus, no. He is... I'm going to plan every bit of him. I'm going to know how I do the wings. I'm going to know how I do the flesh, because I'm going to give him the bared torso. Because I think he looks... I love the armor. I think the armor's great, but I like the... He seems more legitimately demonic with the bared torso, you know?
He looks more like a corrupted human with the bare torso. There's a lot more of the element of the unbridled rage of him.
Absolutely, and I like that. I like that a lot. And he looks a bit more like the original miniature, the epic one.
Yes. Oh, man.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I really like... And I think I might actually give him the Cyclopean face, too.
Yeah.
Because I do like... I've got a soft spot for that.
For that old epic miniature. Yeah, man.
I've got a massive soft spot for all of them. They were where they... I mean, they're not great to look at now, but it's where those essential elements were first determined. And they look way more sort of fantastically demonic.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, they're more mythically demonic. Now, the new miniatures, you can see where they derive from.
Yeah.
They look more like their Primarch cells were elevated, whereas the epic miniatures just look like demons. They look like full-on, full-fledged demons. I mean, Mortarion looks like the Spectre of Death.
He does.
You know, he just looks like the Spectre of Death, which, of course, they can't do. They could not make that now because it clashes with the Necron Catan, the Night the Night whatever he's called.
Night Thrasher.
Him, yes, the one that the Spectre of Death. It clashes too much with him.
But not just that, it would look like a Dark Angel.
It would look too Dark Angel, it just wouldn't work, and it wouldn't fit with the aesthetics of the other Death Guard.
I had a really fun conversation on Twitter this week, actually, about the Dark Angels. So Paul Logan Blaze, Sugar Bear Anderson, who's been on this show, he was talking about Deathwing. And out of nowhere, without me realising, Andrew Turnbull, who's a guy that I've done a lot of work with in the past, he came into the conversation. I was just, I didn't know that Turnbull was an old Warhammer player.
Oh, we've got another potential guest.
If I can get Turnbull on to talk about anything, I will do so.
Awesome.
I love that
Fabulous.
man to bits. He is fantastic.
Fabulous.
But yeah, we're talking about how the Dark Angels have changed, and a lot of old Hammer players who left, they do not like the fact that they have become a knightly order and much prefer the old Native American Indian style that they had.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got to admit, I can't disagree with that. There's something a bit more interesting in how they were... how they used to just collect people from different planets of different ethnicities, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I kind of wish that it hadn't lost that.
Yeah, it's an interest. I mean, it is. I'd argue they're probably one of the loyalist inverted commas that have changed the most.
Very much so. Over 30 years.
In terms of their background, yeah, definitely. The Blood Angels are still pretty much the same as they always were. The Ultramarines are still pretty much the same as they always were. The Ultramarines had an injection of sort of like Greco-Roman stuff.
Yeah.
But that didn't really remove them from their background. It just enhanced elements that were already there. The Imperial Fists are exactly the same as they have always been.
Mm-hmm.
They've never changed the background for the Imperial Fists. They have always been straight down the line the same. But the Dark Angels have shifted massively in terms of like their ethos and the dynamic of their background. They have had this shift from sort of like a very subtle Native American influence to sort of medieval crusading knightly cultures.
Yeah, that's exactly where they've gone, and I think it works for them. And
it works. I mean, it does. It definitely works. I mean, I can see why they did it.
Yeah.
I can definitely see why they did it, and it has introduced this new element. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen that explored. Actually, how would you fit it in? I mean, obviously the knightly thing. The reason they introduced it is because of the monastic imagery.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
It fits really well and naturally with the monastic imagery, which is something I love in the Dark Angels, by the way. I love the monasticism of them. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're Chaos Marines, that also, I like that too.
To be honest with you, it's just down to the fact the Cloud Runner story, and I've mentioned it so many times.
The Cloud Runner story. I mean, so many people of like sort of our generation of Warhammer fans, they remember it very fondly.
Yeah, because
very, very
it's
fondly.
One of the foundations, the building blocks of what got me into playing the games way back in the 80s, late 80s.
Mm-hmm. But it is simply not a thing anymore, is it? No. It's just not part of the background. The Deathwing have got a totally different origin now.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, and I do like the Knightly Order thing.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I really like it. I like the Deathwing Knights and all of that stuff. I think that's really cool and interesting and fun, and it lends them a bit of flavour. And it also means that Deathwing armies have a bit more variety going on now. And I like the notion. I mean, one of the things I love about that they've introduced into the Dark Angels now is the tension that they have with the Primaris Marines.
Yes.
Because they do have Primaris Marines, but the Primaris Marines and the Dark Angels are held at a particular point. They're sort of separate from the rest of the chapter because, of course, they can't introduce them too much or too deeply.
No, because
they'll find out.
Yeah.
They'll find out. If they introduce them into the veteran circles, into the Deathwing, they're going to have to tell them. They're going to have to tell them about the chapter's past.
And you can't do that, because they will go and tell certain people.
Yes, they might go and tell Roboot, and if that happens, they'll be declared excommunicates. They'll be declared traitors, and that'll be it, you know? So that's a very interesting tension. I like that a lot.
I think, fella, we've kind of pretty much come to...
Oh, yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to talk about in this episode.
We've actually done it.
We've actually fulfilled a plan. I mean, my God, what is happening? Are we actually maturing in this endeavour, Adam?
Sorry, maturing.
Yes, no.
No.
Apparently not, no. We'll still be talking about flesh mops and whatnot until the end of time, I'm sure.
So, going forward then, a little bit of chatter. What we're going to try and do for either the next episode or the one after is we're going to have a little bit of a pub quiz.
Okie dokie.
We're going to get Chris back on because I've been desperate to get Chris back on.
Yeah, Chris is good. Chris is cool.
Oh, Chris is good people. But unfortunately, weekends are the time he spends with his family, so that's quite difficult.
So it's tricky. Yeah?
It is a little bit. So I'm hoping that we can do something down the line. I know that he is desperate to get back on.
Oh, brilliant. I'm so pleased because he was very good.
Oh, yes. Oh, Chris is fantastic. And he's one of those guys that I really want to have doing more things, just time doesn't often allow. Which is a massive shame. I've got plans with him to do a Patreon-only 6-episode series, and I think that would be a really good one. It's just trying to get him...
It's coordinating, isn't it?
Yeah, with his work and family and then my work schedule, it is really difficult.
Of course.
But with all that being said, that's something that we're hoping to do. So I think the pub quiz idea is going to be quite a lot of fun. We've got people in the wings to come on. I know that a certain Andy Millman is desperate to get on at the moment.
Awesome. Brilliant. Most pleased.
Because Andy is getting so heavily back into Warhammer, it's unreal.
Brilliant. Oh, that's so cool.
I was actually on
I'm very pleased about
Moonbase
that.
2 with him this week, doing a Moonbase woo-woo with him, talking all about the Age of Sigmar, by which I mean I just started talking and then an hour and a half passed and then he said, well, you can stop talking now, and I went, sorry Andy. Whoops. So yeah, check out Andy's stuff. Other than that, what else have we got coming out? The Malign Portents will continue on the Patreon feed, so if you want
Fabulous.
the higher bitrate feed, the MP3s of them, they are coming out pretty much daily at the moment until all 60 of them are done.
Excellent. I'm going to be doing the next Age of Chaos very soon.
Yay!
Which will explore the Lost and the Damned.
That led to an interesting conversation, actually, on the YouTube. All about how... Have you ever noticed how the Marines have evolved? Or devolved?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They used to be just human beings.
They did. Very angry human beings that went around beating people with sticks.
That's exactly it. All of their power, all of their strength came from their power armor. They were not genetically engineered like Ubermensch characters. And the Primarchs were just generals. There were no Primarchs early on. They were just the named generals of the Space Marine chapters as they were then.
Yes.
There were no legions either. It wasn't until later on that you got the background with the Primarchs and the genetically engineered Supermen and all of that stuff.
Well, one of the cool things that came out of your Ages of Chaos video on the Fluffenhammer channel was that people talked about how the Horus Heresy was just a footnote in Rogue Trader.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Yeah, in the original Rogue Trader book, it's hardly mentioned. It wasn't until the Realms of Chaos that it got fleshed out. But that's true of a lot of things, like the Eldar, the birth of Slaanesh, all of that stuff. That wasn't even a thing in early Rogue Trader. It was maybe mentioned once. But if you go and read Realms of Chaos Slaves to Darkness, it's massively fleshed out, and even more so in Lost and the Damned.
Yeah. I need a new copy of Lost and the Damned, badly.
Mine is falling to bits.
Oh, mine.
It is an original one, so it's falling to bits.
It's 30 plus years old at this point, yeah.
They're bloody good books.
Oh, they are,
They're well worth picking up if you can get them.
I'm hoping that Black Library or Warhammer World pull out Lost in the Damned to go with the Slaves to Darkness.
Well, if they did Slaves to Darkness, so
Yeah,
I see no reason why they wouldn't.
No.
I see no reason why they wouldn't.
Fingers crossed.
It's the better of the two books.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the better of the two books because it occurred some years after Slaves to Darkness, so there is more in it. There's just way more to explore in it.
Yeah.
And it also tells you where the Emperor came from and what he's going to do. All those questions that are like little drip feeds and whatnot, in the Horus Heresy books and in the background, it tells you everything, basically. It makes it explicit. Yeah. It's not canon background anymore, but they do still reference it.
Yeah. It's one that I would love to be able to read without fear of it falling apart.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem I certainly have.
So, that all being said then, that's the things that are happening in the next couple of weeks.
Fab.
So, where, George, can people find you if they would so like to have themselves corrupted by your luscious voice?
Oh, well, in that instance, you can find me at strangeplaygrounds.com, where you'll find my fiction and reviews and articles and whatnot. You can find me at thegingernutsoфhorror.com, where I write articles and reviews. You can find me in the periodical Dark Moon Digest, where, again, I write articles and reviews on horror and whatnot. And you can also find me at the Exaggerated Elegy YouTube channel, where I do my own podcast, the Strange Playgrounds podcast, which explores all manner of twisted and deviant and weird things. And I do Let's Plays and things like that as well. And also at the Twitter feed, Enigmatic Elegy.
Good man. And for myself, you can find me on Twitter at Grufflock. You can find me on Twitter at The Fluffenhammer. You can find all of these shows and more, plus articles, at fluffenhammer.co.uk. And we have a whole heap of things for you if you want to become a Patreon at patreon.com/Fluffenhammer. At the moment, today, the final Malign Portents is up, and tomorrow...
Cool.
Andy continues his Let's Fluff series playing through Space Marine, where...
Cool. There's some good stuff up there, actually, on the Patreon. I have to say, it does go above and beyond.
I want to make sure that people are getting as much bang for their buck as physically possible.
Which is cool, I like to see that.
And, of course, the next Patreon show for this month is going to be you and me talking about sex and sexuality in the 40k.
Certainly is, which was an
universe.
Interesting one.
It really was, and I'm looking forward to the response to that.
I am too. I am really, really looking forward. You're going to have to link me to the comments.
Yes, I will do. I'm tenuously looking forward to that one. Ding! So that'll come out. I think maybe down the line I might put out a cut down version of the Patreon show so people know what they are out. Maybe
That'd be ace, yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be really cool
maybe-
later on so people can have access to them.
maybe like cut out, I don't know, the first half of some. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll have to look into it, and then you could get the expanded versions out on the Patreon.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, just to get people interested, basically. Yeah, you people out there, give us your money. So with all that being said, then we're going to get out of here. When we get through summer, by the way, and we get in, well, when we get into about August time, we'll start giving out a bit of information about the Fluff and Mate as well. So if you have an interest in coming to play and meet us, then I'll start giving out a bit more details. You can find all that on the Facebook group, which, by the way, is the Fluffenhammer. With all that being said, thank you very much for your time this morning, George.
My absolute pleasure. It's been a blast. It's been a really fun one this time. I think this is going to be a very, very, very strong episode indeed.
So they're always strong episodes. What are you saying, George?
They are. Yeah, absolutely. They're always good. They're always good. And you know, I mean, I don't often listen to my own podcast back, but this one I do because I really enjoy it.
I've actually gone back and listened to some of the ones that we did originally, and I actually really enjoy listening to it.
They're not bad, are they? As podcasts go, I'm quite entertained by them, which is odd because I hate the sound of my own voice. But you know,
Same. But then again, there's an actual psychological reason for that.
yes, I know. I've read the studies. We all hate the sound of our own voice.
Yes, we do. And the only people who don't are sociopaths.
Yep.
Not.
Fun, eh? So if you do happen to record yourself and like the sound of your own voice, go see a psychiatrist.
Quickly. Now. Stop listening. Go. Quickly. Go now. Why have you not gone? Why have you not gone? Go. Quickly. Now. Show's over. Bye.
Let's go the other way.
It appeared I lied to you, my little fluffers. Yes, the show's not quite over. I'm going to finish out the show with something really cool. This is going to be a play of a track called 1939 by the Whores of Khan, which is a local band in my area that I have a lot of love for. These guys are fantastic. And so I thought it'd be nice to finish the episode out with that song. You can find them on YouTube at Whores of Khan Official. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them all over the place. I recommend finding these guys and giving them a bit of a go, because it's just metal, and it feels like something that the Fluffenhammer needs. A little bit more metal, a little bit more. I don't know what that noise was, so I'm going to let you just listen. This is Whores of Khan, 1939. Enjoy.
Prepare now, of this